Well, this is part 2 of getting started eating healthy. And I'm making this as a follow-up because I saw this and I had to continue this video. Sorry, this. Can you read that? Lighthouse, homestyle ranch dressing and dip. No artificial colors, flavors, or preservatives. So one of the things I wanted to cover now are marketing and how deceptive it is that you're led to think that something is healthy because of what it says, right? So no artificial colors, flavors, or preservatives makes you feel like, oh, this is all natural, right? So it must be healthy and it must be good for me. And that's why that label is there. But let's read the ingredients. Vegetable oil. Well, what did I say about vegetable oils? Canola, sunflower, peanut, soy. All of these are very, very inflammatory and they irritate your gut. A leaky gut is the foundation of a lot of your health issues, whether it has to do with your brain, your physical symptoms, your skin. And leaky gut is something we'll talk about at a later point because right now we're just covering the basics. So non-fat buttermilk, like I said, and milk powder. I think cow milk is for baby cows to grow into big cows. I don't see any humans still nursing in their 50s, so I can't imagine we need to consume dairy. Cornstarch. Corn is on my no-go list for paleo, so at the moment, if you're just getting started, maybe it's negotiable a little bit. I'm not going to obsess about that. Tapioca starch, carrageenan, locust bean gum, water, liquid egg yolk, non-fat sour cream, which is made from skim milk, cornstarch, modified cornstarch, salt, vinegar, seasoning blend, dextrose, salt, natural flavors, modified cornstarch, soybean oil, silicon dioxide, then more sugar, dried garlic, dried onion, modified cornstarch again, and dried green onion, lactic acid, xanthan gum, guar gum, and spices. Well, why couldn't we just put things that came from nature without all of this other stuff? Exactly what I said, that lots of things get added so these products don't degrade, right? And so they last longer on the shelf. Well, if it doesn't break down and it was made to last longer than natural things, should you really be eating that? I don't think so. So I want to talk about grain. I promote a grain-free lifestyle, and I believe that in order to have true vitality, longevity, and healthy aging, you should be grain-free. A lot of people will not give up grain. Another reason that I avoid grain is because almost every person I treat, myself included, my family included, we have something called insulin resistance. And with insulin resistance, carbohydrates are the enemy. With insulin resistance, you store fat very easily from carbohydrates. Now, carbohydrates look like grain, root vegetables, corn, even fruit. Anything that becomes sugar in your body is a carbohydrate. Now, are all carbs bad for you? Absolutely not. There are good carbs and there are bad carbs. But good carbs to me never look like wheat or grain. So I picked these things. See how nice this label looks? It says non-GMO project verified. And what do you think when you see that? Oh, that's healthy. I could eat that. Okay, if you insist on eating gluten, this might not be the worst thing in the world for you. Gluten and grain are also very inflammatory. They contribute to leaky gut, and I don't find any joy in helping heal patients and restore them to their vitality, get rid of inflammation if they continue to eat grain. Some people, after the introductory phase in our program, will reintroduce grain to some degree, and some people do well and some people don't. My personal belief is that we should not eat grain. And that's just based on researching paleo, looking at evolution, and understanding that health and health issues started to get worse as we modified food. So all gluten in North America is genetically modified, and it contains glyphosate, which is extremely toxic to your liver, worsens your leaky gut, is a toxin your body needs to deal with. It impacts your immune system. A lot of people with autoimmune disease and follow the paleo autoimmune diet will minimize their disease burden, and we've actually reversed autoimmune disease in our clinic, multiple different kinds and in different patients, and none of them remain on grain. That being said, some people will not give up the quick, easy cereal. So when it says non-GMO project, I just don't know how you can believe this, because non-genetically modified wheat is called einkorn wheat. It's a very select type of wheat. It's very difficult to find, and I just don't think that's something that costs maybe, I don't even know what these things cost, but let's say it's under $10. I just don't think you would pay under $10 for something that's truly non-GMO einkorn wheat. And then again, look how attractive they make this. No artificial colors or flavors. Okay, great. This still stinks. I don't recommend it. But if you're going to eat grain, I don't know, go ahead. So the other thing about insulin resistance, don't go ahead. The other thing about insulin resistance, carbs become sugar. When you eat it, your blood sugar spikes, then your insulin spikes, your ability to store fat increases, and anything you eat after that in the next 4 to 6 hours will be stored as fat. So, if you have no issues with your metabolism and your body fat, and you think you're perfectly healthy, I really don't approve of you eating gluten or grain of any kind, but gluten would be the worst. And then a lot of people think, okay, so oats are gluten-free, and so I will just eat oats. So let's see what's in this. Now, just remember that instant oatmeal is highly processed, and so the glycemic index, how quickly it becomes sugar and how much it stimulates insulin and insulin resistance, this one would do it more, because it's processed and it's made so that you can cook it in a minute with hot water, would affect your blood sugar levels and spike your insulin much higher than whole oats that you would have to cook. Again, oats, grain, insulin resistance, not good for metabolism, body fat, all that stuff, not great for leaky gut, and most oats are contaminated with gluten. They're processed in the same facility as wheat, and it's hard to find gluten-free oats. So this has whole grain rolled oats, sugar, salt, fruit and vegetable juice concentrates, apple, purple carrot, and purple corn, and then natural flavor. And I don't love these random ingredients like natural flavor and flavors, because it's like, what is it exactly? Now, I was Googling natural flavors before I started the video, and it does say that they're very proprietary again. So I always think if people want to hide what they're putting in our food, well, I just am very, very suspicious, and I don't want to eat any of that. So inflammation, leaky gut, are the biggest reasons I have patients avoid grain when they start with us. We do a reintroduction and watch how each thing affects patients over time. But people with inflammation, I would highly recommend you avoid all grain. If you have autoimmune disease, I would recommend you avoid all grain, and the transition is quite difficult. So what I suggest is you do it slowly and you get rid of the gluten first, because it is the most toxic and the worst for your health. And then you go with slowly eliminating grain and finding the substitute. So on the paleo diet, and I eat baking, But we use almond flour, coconut flour, tapioca flour. Now, tapioca, arrowroot, those are also high on the glycemic index. I know for many years we've stopped talking about the glycemic index in our clinic, but I'm using that term for all of you who are getting started. And what the glycemic index is how much and how high does this spike my blood sugar? And the reason we stopped talking about glycemic index in our clinic is because of the personalized glycemic response. And when that data came out quite a few years ago now, we quickly stopped talking about glycemic index, because the glycemic index, even though it's a valuable tool, assumes that everybody responds the same way. And with continuous blood glucose monitoring, so in precision medicine, which is also what we do in the clinic, there's a lot of information we get from things like data, wearable devices, and like a continuous blood glucose monitor that you wear on your skin. We can watch what your sugars are doing. What we know is that, let's take this. So okay, so I'm gonna pull names off of all of you that are watching. So let's just say that Stephanie, who I know could eat a whole box of this and it wouldn't impact her metabolism or her weight. You can laugh at me there. Because she can handle a lot of carbs. She's very muscular and all of that. But what if Stephanie had a personalized glycemic response, that when she ate a cup of this and then Ruth ate a cup of this, and only one of them had a really high sugar and insulin response based on their gut bacteria? So see how complicated it gets? So we could also take the oatmeal, okay? So Sherry might be able to eat this and have no response at all. And then Sandra could eat this and have a huge glycemic response, meaning sugar goes up, insulin goes up, stays up, doesn't come down, and she's in fat storing mode after eating this. And then Sherry, she has the regular response and brings it back down. And then here's the worst thing. Let's take two of you. One of you could eat this pickled cabbage, and it's all in Dutch. Okay, here's English. I can read Dutch, by the way. But red cabbage, water, apple, sugar, vinegar, modified cornstarch, and salt. So not the worst thing in the world. And if I were going to have to pick my carb between these two things, of course I'm going to eat this because I don't eat grain. But what if I ate this and my blood sugar response is as high as what I would expect this to be, but if I eat this, I'm also high, right? And so I don't think that came out right. But okay, so I could eat this and have the same response as if I ate this, depending on my microbiome and my personalized glycemic response. So this looks healthier, but in my body, it might not be the healthiest choice. And this is where we use all of the data like personalized glycemic response, and why we don't talk about glycemic index. However, it's pretty safe to assume that if I ate this with all the sugar in it and knowing that I'm insulin resistant, this would not go well for me. So there's a video you could Google, and it's really cool. You just put in Cell Zeevi, Z-E-E-V-I. It is a video made by the Israeli scientists who came up with this idea of personalized glycemic response. And they show you how someone could eat a cookie and carrots and could have a normal sugar response to the cookie. And then someone else could eat the cookie and carrots and not have a good response, like we would expect that a cookie would make you have a high sugar response. And then they show you that someone could have a terrible response to the carrots and not the cookie. So that is why we stopped talking about the glycemic index in our clinic. However, I think we should bring back that concept in that some things are just inherently bad for you, right? And you just shouldn't eat them, especially if you have metabolic issues. Now, let's just talk about metabolism and weight loss, or let's say fat burning, right? I think that's one of the biggest reasons people change what they're eating. Or they're starting to exercise, they want to eat better, and they want to just get started. The thing that I say to patients is, start small and avoid the processed things. I mean, anything that comes in a package. So like I showed you in the previous video, you know, anything. And it doesn't matter if it says sugar-free or whatever it says on it that makes you think that this is a really healthy thing to eat. It's not healthy if they have to try and sell it to you. And it's certainly not healthy if it has all of these ingredients in it that you can't pronounce and you have to Google to figure out what it is and where it came from. So, you know, if you're using things with dairy, packaged and processed things, eventually, I would recommend that we start working to get off of those things and we focus on real and whole food only and not things that come from packages, boxes that can sit on the shelf. I know it's easy. So another place that things, especially like we've covered all of this, but look at this. Isn't this supposed to be healthy? Ensure, right? So a lot of people think, oh, if I'm going to supplement my nutrition, I should use Ensure, Pediasure, Boost, or whatever these things are. Let's look at these ingredients. Water, corn maltodextrin, sugar, milk protein concentrate, canola oil, soy protein. Now, I don't recommend anything from soy at all. Corn oil. Really? So again, corn oil, not a good oil to have. It's inflammatory. Dry or concentrated skim milk, natural and artificial flavor. So we've already covered that artificial flavor is really bad for you, mostly because it comes from things that you would never normally eat, like the petrochemicals. Soy lecithin, cellulose gel, cellulose gum, carrageenan, minerals. And then these are all synthetic versions of minerals, or not the most bioavailable forms of minerals that they've put in here. Some might be decent, but some might not be. And so, you know, it's got copper and zinc and ferrous, which is iron, and manganese and molybdenum even. Wow, I'm impressed with that one. And then choline, ascorbic acid, okay, vitamin C, lots of different vitamins. And then it ends saying it's got milk and soy. So if my mom were in the hospital or anybody was in the hospital, this is the last thing I would give them. Let's look at the macronutrients. So now let's talk about macros. Carbohydrates, 50 grams. I eat under 50 grams a day. That's my carb count. And it's because I follow a low carb, high protein, high good fat diet, and, or shall we say food style, and get rid of the word diet. But 50 grams in one of these, and people are drinking 2 and 3 of these in a day when they're in the hospital, right? So just think of the insulin response and the impact on their insulin resistance having this. And let's see, how much protein does it have? 13 grams of protein. Fats, 11 grams, but are these good fats? Absolutely not. So when you're starting out, I don't want you to count calories, and I don't want you to count even macros, because the simple fact is if you got rid of all the garbage from your diet and you replaced it with whole food. So let's say you had, I love bacon and I have a cholesterol of 4.6, so it certainly doesn't give me high cholesterol, and it will not give you high cholesterol. But let's say you had eggs or deviled eggs or scrambled eggs. Instead of toast, I would have some hash made out of spaghetti squash, not spaghetti squash, butternut squash or something like that on the side, if I bothered to have a side. So if you're going to die and think just, oof, eating eggs by themselves, how is that going to go? All right, well then try, you know, a half cup of berries or something like that on the side. See how it goes for you. Start with a protein smoothie, sausages, heck, I don't think there's anything wrong with eating steak for breakfast. So switch your cereal out for protein in the morning and watch how much better your energy is through the day. Your sugar levels will stay more stable. You will feel fuller for longer. You won't have that crash and you'll be looking for something sweet or quick to eat again. And then Yeah, get rid of all the things that spike your blood sugar. Now, let's talk about diet pop and diet anything. Don't be fooled into thinking that it's good for you. So do not use the low fat and the sugar-free crap. I call it crap because it truly is crap. It is still going to impact your insulin levels. I had a patient who was drinking 8 cups, so a 2-liter of Diet Pepsi a day. And she was addicted to this. She hardly drank any water, but she felt like she was hydrating enough. It was 0 calorie, sugar-free, aspartame filled. You know, whether you believe it or not, most traditional medical people and most lay people will say, well, aspartame safe because it's recognized as safe by the FDA and all the governing bodies and all of that. But if you look deeper into it, there's a lot of people reporting the side effects of aspartame and the impact on the brain and mood and biochemistry and neurochemistry development. So I personally avoid aspartame. I will not have anything with aspartame. I think if I was starving, I would just continue to fast and not have something with aspartame. But when we stopped her Diet Pepsi, and I mean this, we literally only changed her consumption of Diet Pepsi. She lost 8 pounds that month, and it wasn't water weight. We didn't manage to change anything else in her lifestyle because she was not sick, but she was really in a bad state when she came to us with her low energy and her, you know, all of the symptoms that people come to us, and she just didn't have the mental wherewithal to start making big changes. So we gave her a couple of vitamins to start repleting her, and we took away the Diet Pepsi. So can you believe that you can drop 8 pounds in a month from just stopping Diet Pepsi? So you tell me if drinking diet anything and eating anything diet-like is worth it when it does impact your fat storage and your metabolism. So how does it do that? Anything that tastes sweet to the tongue is still stimulating the brain, and your brain is actually thinking that you're getting calories out of this thing. But we know that when you have anything sweetened, whether it has calories or not, so even your natural sweeteners, all of those things will still create an insulin response. And if you're insulin resistant, this is not going to be good for your metabolism. So one of the things to start practicing as you're moving into this lifestyle of trying to eat healthy and taking baby steps is to be aware of what you're eating. So I'm not saying just get rid of it all and just stop it suddenly, because it's like a big deal, a big shock, and you'll probably just go right back to it within 2 or 3 weeks if you can last that long with sudden changes, right? We know that changing how you eat is one of the most difficult things to do. It's emotional, it's challenging, it's changing your routine. There's so many different components and facets to changing how you eat. But once you become aware, like, oh my God, who thought that something that looks healthy might be high in sugar? So this one has 20 grams of carbohydrates per serving. And that's the other thing I want you to pay attention to, serving size. Because you could take a package of crackers and see that it has, I don't know, let's say 10 grams of carbs. And you eat 12 crackers in a sitting, dipping it into your whatever you dip crackers in, right? And then you read that it's 20 grams of carbs per 5 crackers. Or if you take something like this, and they don't give us a calorie count, right? But a lot of these things, when you read the label and it says it's got X amount of calories, X amount of fat, X amount of protein, X amount of carbs, make sure you read the serving size, because it might have 20 grams of carbs in a tub like this, not like you just don't know how little to get how much. So be aware of that. But make baby steps. start reading the labels. Even if you don't make the changes, just be aware. This is good, this is bad. This has, okay, so look here. This one has 120 calories, which we don't count calories on our program. We don't recommend patients count calories at all. But this has 12 grams of fat and 120 calories in 2 tablespoons. Now, I don't know about you, but have you ever actually measured your dressing and had just 2 tablespoons and then got your 12 grams of horrible bad fats out of it? Or do you just kind of do that and then, you know, you're done? So how do you know what you're getting? So if you do nothing else, just read the label and then measure it out so that you know how much you're getting, and then you'll know where you are at and where you're heading to. Again, we're not counting calories, but we're just getting used to saying, well, this is how many carbs I'm getting in a day, and this is how many fat grams I'm getting in a day, and this is how much protein I'm getting in a day from all these things that I add. And a lot of people add lots of things to their food when they're eating because we're just used to doing that, right? And it's now getting used to eating real food, whole food, and eating it for how its flavor is in its natural state. And food can be very, very palatable in its natural state if we prepare it well. So I'm just hoping that this was very helpful for you and that you can start being aware first and then work on reducing the sugar, reducing the carbs, and reducing all of the artificial things, especially aspartame and then the bad oils and things with artificial flavors and things like that. So let me know how you're doing, and if you found things in your diet, or as I'm talking to you, just drop me a note and say, hey, I actually realized this, or I'm doing that and I thought it was good, or ask me a question. Just let me know. All right, here's to living younger, longer. I'm Dr. Natasha Iyer.